average is not invited. Not if you're holding your company off-site in Las Vegas. We aren't on friendly terms with the bare minimum, and unenthusiastic is uninvited. Las Vegas's creative energy and world-class hospitality want to bring your company off-site to crazy new heights. That's why fear-based leadership is afraid of Vegas. And boring? Won't be there, but it will be watching the meeting recordings later. Plan for the extraordinary at vegasmeansbusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got Syril Vasquez, and she helps women with natural hair loss reversal. And her specific focus is she helps clients with diet, supplements, and lifestyle practices. So if you're searching for natural hair loss removable or searching for answers or solutions to hair loss, how to reverse hair loss naturally, functional nutrition for hair growth, and women's hair loss solutions, Cyril's the guest for you today. So I'm really happy to introduce her and talk about this fascinating area and contribute to the discussion. So Syril, welcome.
Thank you. It's just a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah. I know you're calling in from, and so, briefly introduce yourself and we'll dive into the questions and conversation.
Sure. So I used to have a career in the allopathic conventional medical community. I worked, I would say, a couple years in diagnostic imaging and then the rest in specialty pharmacies. And that's where I started learning a lot about that model. And I learned how to read labs. Although I functioned as a sales rep, I built very deep relationships with dermatologists, gynecologists, gastroenterologists, and then I got hair loss. And I went over to them and I said, hey, remember me? I brought you the cookies. Now it's time for you to help me out. And I created a binder of labs, probably around, I think I still have it, 2 or 3 inches big. And I even had a table of contents in the beginning of it just to help guide the practitioners through all of the labs, showing them what was off. And they would roll their eyes at me or give me this look like, gosh, she's crazy, and give me the unfortunate news that everything was normal. This was just genetics, and there was really nothing we could do but slow it down. And at that age of, this started when I was 24, and it took me about 8 years for me to say, you know what? If they can't help me, I'm going to help myself. And I went back to school. And I learned functional medicine, and I obtained multiple certifications in functional medicine. In my journey, I probably spent around $75,000 in just a few short years testing and trying, learning. I spent $20,000 on hyperbaric oxygen therapy alone because I was so desperate to figure out, how do I fix this problem that nobody seems to be able to help me with? And through divine intervention and just pure resilience, I was able to understand that hair loss and thinning, it's not this genetic destiny that we cannot escape. And it's just this, there's so much hopelessness around it. But instead, 80% is actually the environment and the choices that we're making, and only 20% is genetics. And if we're in tune with our body and what it's saying to us, and we don't ignore whatever symptom, and we really lean into that, then we actually have the information we need to understand what is triggering the hair loss and how to be able to put the body in a place where it can heal itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really fascinating intro. And so we'll dive into the questions. So a lot of, women or people, even men, they're searching for natural hair loss reversal. So first thing is talking about is just what causes hair loss in women naturally.
There are so many reasons that people would not think of, but the biggest one is food. There are some inflammatory foods that we eat on a consistent basis that can make the issue worse. And every time we have the sugar, the gluten, the corn, the rice, even dairy, depending on how healthy someone is, that can create more scar tissue. It can create more inflammation. It can create more shedding. And there are signs. I have a client that was working with me, and she's learning to listen to her body. And she went to the Super Bowl party, and she had some corn chips after abstaining from all of those foods for 21 days. And she realized she started coughing a lot from eating those chips. And the reason she was coughing was because eating the corn was creating mucus in her body, and it was in the lungs, and her body was trying to cough out the mucus from her lungs. I had another client that stopped eating sugar, and when she did that, she realized that the amount of shedding that was going on dramatically decreased, and her rings were able to fit in a way that they hadn't fit since she was recently married. And so there's so many different examples that I can provide as far as what the body is trying to communicate in reference to food. I could say myself that when I was earlier on in my healing journey, dairy was a big trigger for me. And I would have a whey shake and I would feel my throat get very lumpy, or sometimes I would get mucus in my nose, and it was the same thing. There was just mucus being developed. And so the body uses mucus as an emunctory function to get rid of more toxins when it's overloaded. You see mucus in the stool, or you see someone get an infection and they have phlegm in their throat. This is the body trying to figure out, well, she's not peeing enough out. She's not pooping enough out. She's not breathing enough out. She's not sweating enough out. Let me create some mucus to be able to get rid of more crap because she's putting way too much in. So food is a big one. Another one is environment. I cannot tell you how big of a trigger this is without giving you a couple of stories. So here's one. My husband works in the construction business in a way where he develops high-end cabinetry for kitchens. So he works in a bay with a lot of dust, and there's an office next door. But the point is, as the project manager, he's constantly influxed with all of this residue. After marrying him, I noticed that as we would, sleep together in the bed, I really couldn't sleep in my room anymore. And I thought the problem was my house. And I would notice my tongue would get white, my stomach would get bloated, my hair would be thinning, and this would happen overnight. And we recently had some friends come over from Europe because he's from there for 6 days. And so we had to sleep together on the couch. Well, the first couple of days, I was used to sleeping there to just try to heal because I couldn't heal in the bedroom. First couple of days, everything is fine. By day 3, I'm starting to notice these symptoms are creeping up again. I'm not really sure why. By day 6, I had to sleep on the other side of the couch. We have an L-shaped couch. And I told him, honey, the problem is you. It's you, not showering right away after work and bringing the dust in your legs, on the hair on your legs, and bringing it into the sheets. And it's accumulating and it's making me sick. And so now as soon as he gets home, he takes a shower and we're finally able to sleep together in the bedroom again without me suffering overnight. Mold is another trigger. We had mold in the attic. A lot of my clients have mold in their home. Mold is very common because construction nowadays, the code is not built in a way that has health in mind, so to speak. And it's creating instances where mold is more common in the homes. You see a lot of people ended up getting hair loss and having thinning hair during COVID. Oh, it's because we were eating like crap. Yes, but it was also because we were spending a lot of time at home. We have all this dust and we have all this mold. And mold creates mycotoxins. And when that gets into your body, it's a toxin, and it puts your body in a sympathetic state. It creates more garbage for your lymphatic system to flush out. So there are so many different ways that is a poison that your body interprets as an allergen, and then your immune system is going to try to compensate for that somehow. Our hair is created from organic matter. And organic matter has heavy metals in it. We all have heavy metals. We have arsenic in rice, arsenic in cassava. We have glyphosate in all the food. I mean, which is not exactly a heavy metal, but it's still a poison. We have mercury in seafood. So there are heavy metals everywhere. And guess what? Whenever we shed massive amounts of hair, massive amounts of heavy metals leave with it. And then new hair comes out with more heavy metals. And so our hair almost becomes a secondary mechanism for detoxification. And when I had gotten to this point in my life where my hair looked like this, and I was really having a hard time with the way that I looked and how sick I was, it was really because I was in a moldy home. I didn't know I had an allergy to dust. And at that point, I was eating an all vegan diet, but I was eating way too much sugar. I was eating way too much fruit. And it was creating more scar tissue on my scalp because I had a fungal infection. I had a fungal overgrowth. And when that it lives in the body, it can live in your stomach, it can live in your nails, but it can also live in your scalp. And if it lives there, then your body will say, I am going to make her scalp less hospitable for this overgrowth. So let me create some scar tissue. And so this is just happening so often in culture today because of how the environment of our food and our homes and just our ignorance is really exacerbating this issue.
Fascinating. And also, we talked about the causes, and we have around 6 minutes remaining. And so, talk about because you talk about diet, supplements, and lifestyle. And so, briefly, just in the next 5 minutes, which foods help with hair regrowth, and supplements and lifestyle, like one of each?
Sure. I can do better than that. I will say with the food, you want to eat in a way where you're focusing on high quality, organic, grass-fed, antibiotic-free meat. And you also want to eat a lot of vegetables. If you're going to have fruit, it needs to be very low glycemic fruit. You barely want to have it, and you want to pair it with protein or fat to minimize the response to your blood sugar. When it comes to grains, the only grains I would eat would probably be quinoa and buckwheat, but that's me personally. And I find that works really well in practice with clients as well. So that's pretty much how to eat. Eating healthy fats is good as well, but just really not an abundant amount of them either. As far as lifestyle is concerned, the health of your mouth is a reflection of the health of your gut. And so I think a lot of people do not take as much care in their oral health as they should if they want to be an overall healthy human. There are bacteria that are living in your oral cavity, which is what the mouth is inside here, that can cause dementia, that can cause cancer, that can cause diabetes. And so having a hygiene where you are gargling with hydrogen peroxide, using the water flosser, in the best way possible with the right tools attached to it, doing oil pulling with coconut oil. These are all things that will help the health of your gut. Also, you want to try to create a life where you are sweating as much as possible so that you can get toxicants out of your body faster than just peeing and pooping. And you also want to prioritize having enough fiber, and anywhere from 20 to 40 grams. You can start low and keep going up, and drinking enough water so that you aren't constipated, because that is actually going to offset your hormones. There are hormones you're trying to excrete through your feces that are not getting excreted, and they're recirculating because you're constipated and your gut health is poor. So that's important. And as far as supplements, that's hard to say because everyone is so bio-individually unique. I can say that herbs are something I use common in practice. And it's not just herbs for your female health or your female reproductive hormones, but it's also herbs for your adrenals that will make a big deal and a big difference. And also herbs that will help set your sleep in order, because if you're not sleeping, if your blood sugar is imbalanced, if you have inflammation, if your gut isn't healthy, and you have poor circulation of the blood and the lymph, you have not set the stage to regrow hair naturally. But some herbs that come to mind that would be safe for anyone would be holy basil, rhodiola. These are herbs for the adrenals. As far as resetting the woman's health, I would say wild yam is a good one to help women offset the estrogen to progesterone ratio. Mm-hmm. And so those are some staple lifestyle, diet, and supplement practices that help me get women to this next level of healing, where they're able to put their body in a healing state. But we also have to undo the damage, because you can start doing some of these things and prevent further damage. But there's this whole aspect of, how do we get the body to break down the scar tissue? How do we get the body to go into all the crevices inside of you that it's been meaning to get to to repair, but it never got a chance to repair because you kept bombarding it with new injuries? And so that's something to keep in mind as well.
Excellent. Yeah. How can people find out more about you and learn more from you and connect with you?
Sure. I have a Facebook group. It's called Reversing Hair Loss Naturally. I go live in there once a week answering questions. So that's a great resource. I also have a quiz. If someone's listening to this and they're like, oh gosh, I want to see if maybe this is a possibility for me. Am I far too gone? Is natural hair regrowth something that is feasible for me? Then they can go to my website, which is belcanics.com. So that's BELLECHANICS.com. And then the quiz will pop up, but they can also put /quiz, and then it'll take them right to the quiz. So they can do that. And there's also a training on my website on the top 3 mistakes that women make when they're trying to reverse their hair loss, but they're not hitting the mark. And so if you go to the website, you will see that video there immediately, and you can listen to the training.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And I know, hair loss and, that's a big deal. And I know a lot of the audience are women listening. So I think a lot of useful information and great tips for them to chew on and think about. So thanks so much, and keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Christopher. It was a pleasure to speak with you and your audience today.